All right, so is the present showing for everybody?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, we're ready? So good evening, everyone. For our presentation, our group chose to focus primarily on the SAMR model and its description of technologies in the classroom. Now, each presenter will discuss 5 diverse technologies that we have been able to put into practice in our classroom or have seen in the practice by others. A bit of the background of the SAMR model is that it was discovered by Dr. Ruben Pentadoro. He has put forth 4 stages to the implementation of technology in education, and he also suggests that you look at his model as a ladder, which is like a dividing line in the middle where you use the educational technology changes from the enhancement of the lesson to transformation of the lesson for the learner. Now, our presentation will follow his model to introduce our technologies within the framework of the classroom. As we introduce the tech items, each of us will discuss the original task, the substitutive technologies used, and the way in which those technologies augment the lesson for the learner. Then as we move on into the transformative section of the model, we'll look at how the teacher has been able to modify the original task for the students and ultimately how the use of technology has redefined the original task to include ideas that were inconceivable by the original educational design without the implementation of technology. Now, because of time restraints and slow transitions in the sandbox, our group has limited the times of transition between each slide. Okay? Now, just a couple of seconds while it loads. Okay, so first we'll start with the interactive whiteboard, where the original task is for students and teachers to utilize the chalkboard to communicate solutions to, per se, like a mathematical problem. In substitution, an interactive whiteboard would replace the chalkboard so that students can demonstrate and explain a mathematical problem using several colors of the digital ink, geometric shapes, or other interactive tools to amplify their work. In augmentation, the teachers or students can add a new page or flip chart to the screen to continue working on their mathematical problem when more room is needed. In other words, no need to erase. For modification, teachers project student resources, including their textbooks, through interactive multimedia, and they can also save the notes related to the lessons in files for use of another class or for emailing the resources to students who are absent. In redefinition, students would work collaboratively in groups using any application to complete and create their own notes or mathematical problems using the iPads or computers, and they can share their work with the class by connecting their devices to the interactive whiteboard. Okay. Now, in Kahoot, the original task would be to answer multiple choice math problems on a formal assessment using paper pencil. The substitution would be that the Kahoot application would replace the paper pencil assessment and allow students to answer multiple choice questions on a digital device, like a cellular phone, iPad, or a computer. In augmentation, the Kahoot application provides immediate feedback, which allows for students to compete against each other. As we move on to the modification, Kahoot application provides students the opportunity to take control of their learning by using various sources of technology to organize and create their own Kahoot game review. In redefinition, the Kahoot application provides the opportunity for students to receive feedback as they share their Kahoot game review with other students around the world. In Padlet, the original task would be to complete math problems from a worksheet or a textbook. For substitution, the Padlet application would replace the class textbook or worksheet and allow students to complete digital worksheets created by the teacher. In the augmentation, Padlet application is like a blank wall where it can enhance forums, discussions, communications, or feedback from teachers and students. In modification, the Padlet application grants students the ability to show work by creating a video or PowerPoint and inserting it into their Padlet. And as a redefinition, the Padlet application would allow students to save and export their Padlets into folders and use them for review. Now, the Padlet also reminds me of the work of Paulo Freire, when he expresses that both the teacher and student are jointly responsible for the process growth of education when applying the liberatory concept of education. And our next one, Edmodo, for our original task, we can maintain current communication with students and parents. For substitution, the Edmodo application would be used as a communication tool with students and parents, and it could be utilized from any digital device. In augmentation, through the Edmodo application, students can receive or submit assignments at any time. Modification, as a homework assignment, students watch teacher-assigned videos on particular lessons, so that way we can implement flipped learning in the classroom the following day. And for redefinition, students and teachers can use Edmodo as a social media type thread, kind of like a Facebook for education. And it's controlled communication, which can reach out to other students and teachers around the world. And lastly, I have Flickrs. Flickrs, as an original task, can be to complete multiple choice math problems on a formative assessment, also using paper pencil. For substitution, the Flickrs could be utilized as a formative assessment, and it'll replace the traditional paper pencil tool. In augmentation, Flickrs provide students and teachers with instant feedback on their understanding of the lesson and encourages student engagement. For modification, teachers divide the class into two groups, and it enables the groups to construct their own formative assessment so they can challenge each other. And on the last one, the redefinition, which that's my class, by the way. That's me holding up the iPad. Teachers can give a quick formative assessment midway through a lesson. They don't have to wait to the end of the lesson. They can do it right then and there in real time. That way it can inform instruction instantly.
Hello? Okay. On this application scratch, students create interactive stories, games, and animations, allowing them to think creatively and work collaboratively. These animations can be shared with other users, online users. The substitution, Scratch replaces complicated coding programming, and it starts at a level where the students feel very comfortable. And as they continue, the level gets more complex. On the augmentation, it provides a visual lesson that allows students to create meaningful personal and educational projects. On the modification, it helps students to visualize physical tasks in a specific content area. And on the last and first definition, Scratch assists students with problem solving, communication, interpersonal, and self-directional skills. Next one is Evernote. The original task is students capture notes of what they are learning and import their notes or their work into a technological device, to any technological device. The notes are easy to find and can be shared with others. The students can share the big ideas by collaborating in groups. The substitution, Evernote replaces paper-written note memos. On the augmentation, it's used as a note taker to help students to improve organizational skills. The modification allows students to use voice memos to record thoughts and ideas. And the last one, the redefinition, promotes openness and simplifies students' lives by capturing digital modes. The CISO, the regional task, serves as a communication system between teachers and parents, and the students use a portfolio, a digital portfolio, to collect their work and enables the teachers to review student progress. The substitutions, the CISO can replace the typical portfolio system to a more innovative digital approach. The augmentation still empowers students to independently document what they're learning in a digital portfolio format. The modification allows teachers to review students' progress over time. And the redefinition allows students to show and review what they know using photos or videos and drawings. Next one is the Google Classroom. The original task is it is a blended learning system that grades and distributes assignments to students in a personalized way. Substitution, it replaces traditional paper homework assignments. Grades and progress can be viewed by the students. The augmentation creates assignments that help students to stay organized. Modification, it boosts collaboration and communication among students by providing feedback to their peers onto the Google Classroom discussion stream. The redefinition, the Google Classroom community saves students time with class assignments, projects, and homework. Class Dojo, the original task provides positive feedback to students and helps improve behavior. The teacher chooses a specific skill or behavior that needs to improve and work on building those skills. The substitution replaces negative behavior for positive behavior. The teacher uses a management report to monitor the behavior in the student's progress. The augmentation, it helps students build soft skills. It reinforces positive behavior, engage students and families into the school community. Modification, it enables teachers to monitor students' behavior and academic progress. And the last one, the definition of what generates reports that can be shared with parents.
I'm just jumping in. I can't hear anyone.
Oops, I'm so sorry. Okay, as I was preparing these slides, I related it to the Understanding by Design. Can you hear me now? Understanding by Design framework of McTeague and Wiggins, in that it lends itself to learning is enhanced purposely. There's a focus on deepening of student understanding. Students autonomously make sense of transfer learning, and teachers are coaches of understanding. They review units for curricular quality and continually improve approach. So my first task was Microsoft Publisher. The original task, students use paper and pencil to write a journal article based on a given prompt by a teacher. Substitution would be using word processing program, which would enhance the process or improve the process but not change the depth of the assignment. Augmentation would be to use Microsoft Office Publisher to type an article in a magazine style format with the drop letter T and the column formatting, and just putting a little more focus on that. Modification would be using Microsoft Publisher to create an authentic looking magazine where students would research online magazines, read articles, and look at professional styles. You can see this cover here, and the double page spread were projects that were done in my classroom based on this modification concept. Redefinition would be to plan, design, write a yearbook, which we are doing at our school, and we're getting the whole school involved using language arts teachers and writers and designers to make an authentic magazine. Next would be Lego Mindstorm. The original task would be students engage in reading about environmental pollution through textbooks or magazines. Students read, engage, and discuss and answer questions based on issues in local community and the world. Substitution would be using computers to gain this information to research environmental issues, create trends, and write a report about the issue that discusses the problem and possible solutions. Augmentation would be to research on Lego Mindstorm to begin looking at their environmental challenges, use the internet to gather information, and start coming up with a plan as far as looking at environmental problems. Modification would be to collaborate as a team to design a machine that could safely deal with an environmental hazard or concern. Students would discuss the problem and their solution, and then students would build the machine and program the robot. Redefinition through teamwork, engage in Lego Mindstorm Challenge, which is a team event. The program is designed to engage teams of students in collaborative problem solving, designing, and programming robots to perform tasks. Next would be Trimble SketchUp. Original task, identify geometric shapes using books and paper and pencil to calculate and to draw out shapes. The substitution would be using internet resources and computer resources to label and calculate geometric shapes. Augmentation might be to use Khan Academy or a similar program to watch instructional videos and perform calculations within the program that has practice problems there. Modification, use Trimble SketchUp to design a building using 3D shapes, or even to design geometric shapes, and then they can interact in a 3D method and move around the object, so it's more in depth. Redefinition of this would be using Google Cardboard or other VR devices that allow students to interact with their creation in a virtual way, and then possibly collaborate with each other to build communities or build other structures and work together in a 3D environment. And speaking of 360, which I love, virtual reality. Love is a strong word, but 360 virtual tours. Original task, students read about cultures through printed text and library resources. Information is gathered and a report is produced. Students discuss aspects of culture. Substitution would be utilizing word processing and typing the report. Augmentation would be using internet resources to gain more information, to get data and video and other content that they could use to create a PowerPoint, a multimedia PowerPoint presentation on the culture. Modification would be to view virtual tours for a more in-depth interactive view of a museum or geographic location. Through engagement, the idea is that more interactive with diverse media would make the content more immersive and create and then they would create a virtual tour using PowerPoint in an out of the box method, in that they are actually creating the look of a virtual room where it would move around, and the pictures on the wall. You could see some small examples there of some rooms that my students created where they actually clicked it. So if they moved right, the room would appear to move to the right and to the left, so that was kind of getting pretty cool. Redefinition would be to view media through VR goggles, because there's some pretty professional things out there, and I just see it getting better. Compare with traditional forms of learning about culture. Students will analyze information and express ideas through writing, creating visual representations, and engaging in group discussions through their experiences. And then the school-wide tool, Schoology. In the past teachers collaborated with colleagues by having face-to-face meetings, handing papers to each other, putting papers in mailboxes. And then substitution was use of email, communication systems, face-to-face telephone. And then augmentation would be additional organization and collaboration tools such as Google Docs, where we could share files with one another more efficiently. Modification would be the Schoology has been introduced at my school, and I see it as a modification in that basic communication tool for teachers, and the more I see teachers getting engaged in it, the more I see the communication improving, and even for myself, I have more resources. I can store all my resources there. And then redefinition would be a full implementation of Schoology that provides a valuable tool for teachers for anytime, anywhere learning, and access of all users to communicate with one another through the learning process. We can store resources and all kinds of good stuff.
Just had to turn my mic back on. Can everyone hear me? So for my first tech tool, as we continue to go through the SAMR model, I would like to discuss Google Slides and the life of a fruit fly. The original educational task would have been to create a poster board or to make a picture representation of the life cycle of the fruit fly, a task that many elementary school students have had to complete. The substitution of technology in this case would be to replace the poster board presentation with a single Google Slide where students could create a one-sheet digital life cycle. The augmentation of using this tool would have the teacher's expectations of the students raised to include a multi-page presentation with embedded pictures and videos describing the fruit fly's life cycle. As we move up the ladder of the model and enter into the transformative section, we look at the modification of the lesson to include having the students work as a team to develop the presentation, highlighting the different stages on each slide being presented on the overhead projector, and detailing why the fruit fly is able to thrive in the human environment. And ultimately, the teacher's goal of redefinition would be achieved through group collaboration and shared experience with the school community, when the students and teachers would collaborate with other classes to create a school-wide presentation depicting the entire ecosystem of the school, including the fruit fly's niche. Students would present in the classroom, create a recording of their research project, and share with the school community over the Google Apps for Education suite. My second tool is Quizlet and Quizlet Live. The original task was designed to help students study vocabulary for the upcoming geography quiz. The substitution would be to use copies of the teacher-created Quizlet flashcards to study. Then the augmentation would come along as students use the flashcards on their Chromebooks to help each other study the words and prepare for their quiz. The transformative modification would be to allow students to create groups and develop their own Quizlet games and play those games and quizzes with each other to prepare. And the redefinition is where Quizlet Live is involved. For Quizlet Live, the teacher would gather all the student-created materials and sort them into one large quiz, break up the groups into different teams, and the teams would then have to work together and collaborate to win a Quizlet Live race, which emphasizes the need for getting the correct answer over speed, and it helps as you work through your teamwork to get more points for your team. Google Earth and the study of China. The original task was to use an atlas to describe the terrain surrounding China and how that terrain led China to have a history of xenophobia. The substitution of this task would allow students to use Google Earth and take the place of the atlas. The augmentation would be using the provided tools on Google Earth to determine measurements of distance, altitude, aerial photography to enhance the understanding of the difficult geography surrounding China. The modification of the lesson occurs when the students are able to work together to create labels and layers on the Chinese map in Google Earth, as well as to curate available photos from other users, to synthesize the information with visual representations, and finally, the redefinition would be to allow students to explore the region and attempt to help early-day explorers find the best land route into the Chinese mainland. How can students help solve the problems of early days explorers with today's technology? Alternately, students could also use Google Cardboard and Google Earth tours to view the landscape on their handheld devices. Just like this is another style where, in my opinion, this style is reminiscent of Paulo Freire, where it's a liberatory view of education. This is a new tool that students could go places they never would have experienced if they hadn't learned how to use and develop the technology. My next tool discussed is Socrative. It's used to discuss Sherman's March to the Sea. The original idea would have been for students to use teacher-based instruction in a textbook to learn about the Civil War. The substitution of technology would encourage an e-book, prepared quizzes on Socrative, and students printing out and handing in their work. The tech tool can augment the lesson by allowing the students to pace themselves on the lesson and answer computer-based Socrative questions digitally, which the teacher can monitor from his or her computer to ensure student engagement and achievement. The tool allows the lesson to be truly modified once you hand the reins of your lesson over to the students, and with the help of a Google Classroom, students can view and perform tasks designed by both the teacher and other students. Then, once the students are comfortable with those tools, the lesson can be redefined as the students create their own quizzes and questions on Socrative and quiz each other, become the facilitator to, there's another race, space race on Socrative that you can have the students compete against each other in teams to really gauge their own learning. And my final tool for the SAMR model in the classroom is Apex Learning. Apex Learning is a subscription-based system which provides digital curriculum for students or assists to create a blended learning environment in a school or classroom. The original task was for students to read, study, and answer study questions for the outsiders in preparation for a test. The substitution would be to simply use a digital book on the Apex Learning platform and perform all the other work as it would have previously been presented by the teacher. The augmentation would be to use the ebook and the digital platform to answer all those questions, the study guides, the vocabulary, everything that you would traditionally study when you're studying a novel. The transformative modification would happen when students had access to the digital audio book, the other tools that enhance student learning, the digital thesaurus, dictionary, grammar tools. The Outsiders provides history lessons that go off on tangents to talk about the history at the time the Outsiders would have been set in. And students will be able to enhance their understanding by continuing their story in their own words and writing an epilogue to the book with a group of their classmates. Finally, the redefinition would come about when the teacher led the students to flip their classroom and perform the readings and instructions at home, so that during class time together they could work on a digital recreation, wish I could talk, of the story and share their recreation throughout the school community on the digital learning platform. Thank you all for allowing us to present our 20 diverse technology tools in the educational setting. We attempted to place the tools in the SAMR model framework for the classroom from the view of the teacher. As we've gone through the development of our presentation, we found the SAMR model to be an effective tool to help teachers and leaders think about how to push the use of their technology in the classroom forward. We found it difficult to clearly categorize each technology and its uses upon one distinct SAMR level. It became increasingly difficult to determine which level a teacher would currently be on in their development along the model. We felt that instead of a pure ladder design, the model lends itself more to a set of hills, plateaus, or mountain ranges where teachers and students need to learn and develop new skills slowly while they are continually progressing towards educational redefinition. Also, we found that people who are more comfortable with technologies and their uses in the classroom may look at their levels in the SAMR model differently than do tech users who are newer or less comfortable at integrating educational technology. Shortly, we will be sending out an email with a link to a Google Doc with all of our resources, including the link to this Prezi, so that you guys can access all of our information. Thank you for your attention, and may we answer any questions.
Wow, that was a very ambitious project you did. I'm trying to think. When you multiply the technologies, the applications rather, by each stage of the model, you really went above and beyond. Maybe a short Q&A section, then I'd just like to move on to the next group, and then we could maybe continue it online. I'll post the links, and if you could submit your presentation, I think there's a part in the assignments for that. I'm going to take my answers offline.
I don't have anybody muted. No questions? We can move on.
It's Alex. I'll ask one here. Just with regard to the interactive whiteboards, just because I had used this topic, in a couple of discussion board posts. What do you guys think is, sort of the prognosis for interactive whiteboards in the classroom? Do you think they've outlived their usefulness, or do you think there's going to be sort of a rejuvenation of them in the classroom?
Well, I think for now, the interactive whiteboard is being used a lot, but I do see I feel like it's being used a little bit less since students have to be working in collaborative learning. You know, they all have to be working together in groups. So I find my class sometimes using Chromebooks more than the actual whiteboard itself. I think the whiteboard is used a lot more for the instructional part, maybe 15 minutes at the beginning of class kind of thing, just to kind of show any resources to the whole, like a whole group instruction. I don't know if you see it the same way.
I agree. That's the way I see it going. I see it kind of a one group instruction, and then it gets broken down into a lot of one-on-one or individual or small group instruction with the Chromebooks or other devices.
I have a whiteboard sitting in my room, and I don't use it other than presentation, just because I feel like it only provides for a couple students to be engaged with it at one time, and so I'd rather have more full engagement than just the whiteboard can offer.
All right, guys, great. Thanks for that.
Thanks for the question.
No problem.
All right, hey, great job, guys. And I'm always a little curious about how multiple audios worked, and it seems to be working really well. I'm thinking that if I do this again, we'll have a buffer of a raised hands or something, or start with a chat and then pick. But great question, Alex, and great answers, guys. All right, so we'll start with the next group. Let me give you guys, that's Stephen, Rachel, Anna, and Leah. Let me just switch the moderators right now. Give me a second. Okay, the members of Group 2 should have full moderator privileges. If you don't, just let me know. You should have a bunch of new doodads on your screen. So, Stephen, Rachel, Anna, and Leah, do you have moderator privileges?
I do. I'm just waiting for them to upload it.
Everybody hear me? Oh.
Yes, Leah.
Okay, great. Yes, we could. Hello.
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me? This is Rachel.
Yes, Rachel. Hi.
We can hear you. All right, are we ready?
Yeah, okay. The previous moderators, I couldn't remove their moderator privileges. I just took away their video, so if they do talk, their camera doesn't pop on, okay? So that's just wanted to give everybody a heads up. I'm going to turn my mic off, and please take it away. Thank you.
All right, we chose to introduce a technology from the theoretical framework of the TPAC model. When choosing a new technology to implement in the classroom, it is important to assess the lesson from 3 different lenses. This includes not only the technology itself, but the content being delivered and the pedagogical principles that make the lesson educationally sound. Many of our veteran teachers, for example, have the pedagogical and content knowledge, but lack the technology, and therefore fall short of meeting some of the needs of the 21st century learner. Other teachers might have the content knowledge and introduce a new technology for the sake of using technology, but the activities are not based on sound educational theory that would maximize the learning experience. As an educator, the sweet spot is when you know your content knowledge well, create lesson plans that incorporate research-based pedagogical principles and theories to teach it, and then use technology to actually be able to implement it. A quick example is in the special education field. For over 25 years, the field has suggested to use summative and formative assessments to individualize instruction through differentiation and sensors for the different subjects. While many of the teachers have the content knowledge and the pedagogical knowledge, creating a classroom where these educational theories were implemented proves difficult because they can be very time-consuming. With emerging technologies, teachers who have the technological knowledge can now bring it all together, creating an optimal learning environment for the students. Click here. Okay, let's look at some of the technology I use to bring it all together in my classroom. First, I use sensors on a regular basis in my language arts class. Time is the staple of my sensors. While the Common Core standards mandated increased amount of nonfiction being taught in the classrooms, many districts didn't have the resources readily available to teach it. There are a number of articles that you can assign to the students. Every week there is one that has a quiz. They also have short videos, paired text, and you can have your ELL students read it in Spanish, or they can listen to the articles as well. You can also differentiate by lowering the reading level for those students who need it, like your 504 students and your special ed. The teacher gets the graded quizzes along with data that can now be used to drive instruction. Here you can see several students in my class, and then you can assess which Common Core standards need to be taught or retaught. If we look at it through the framework, okay, you have to have your technology, you have to know how to navigate both the time edge and the computer. You're teaching nonfiction, 21st century skills. When you first put kids on this program, their test scores are suppressed because they don't have the ability, the technological ability, to work with 2 tabs open. You need one for the article and you need one for the quiz, and they have to navigate between the 2 of them. So their scores, their comprehension scores, will be lower until they become proficient with the technological component as well. And then the pedagogical knowledge that drives this is using differentiation, data-driven, formative and summative assessment, and using multiple mediums. Okay. Now, for the other 4 technologies that I'm going to introduce, I use them through novel studies to enhance their learning in a variety of ways. In the fall, we use the Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury, where a group of kids travel back in time and learn about the different cultures and how they influence the Halloween traditions of today. After reading about a culture or place, we break into sensors and explore individual topics further. When we learned about the Day of the Dead, students went to the Google Culture and Arts pages, and they were able to explore the Day of the Dead through a variety of articles, videos, exhibitions, and the 360-degree technology. They actually were able to go to a gravesite or a cemetery during the Day of the Dead and see what it looks like. Now, if we look at it, this is the context knowledge. We're targeting nonfiction, culture, background knowledge, primary and secondary sources. They have a lot of primary sources on that website.
The pedagogical knowledge is inquiry-based. I'll send kids on these pages, and then they navigate to what they like. Some kids prefer reading articles, some prefer the 360 technology. And then the technology is using the computer, the 360 technology. Those are the things that you need to know. Now, Newsella is the next one that I use. With this, you can assign nonfiction articles, but they are not restricted to current events. Also, you can raise and lower the left-out levels in 5 different levels for the same article. Let me go to the next one. Okay, as you can see here, I used articles based on the novel or short stories that we're covering in class. When we were doing the Halloween, this article is from the New York Times from 1892 and customs that they had back then. The kids get to get 4 multiple choice questions, and they also have a writing activity that you can use. You can also run analytics on this website if you have the premium subscription. Again, you're using paired text, 21st century learner, comprehension and writing skills. There's differentiation. You're targeting less soft skills. There's some data analysis and some authentic learning, and it's interdisciplinary. Okay, now, while everyone knows YouTube, I feel it's underused in schools. It can be used in a variety of ways. When we converted this file, obviously my slide got messed up. It can be used in a variety of ways. One way is to show primary sources. When I saw the historical novels based on the civil rights era, I used videos to bring them back to that place. They saw videos of Black Panthers. They also saw like an interview with Muhammad Ali about changing his name and what that meant to him. So it brings the concepts and the images alive for them. Sometimes you can show another perspective, teaching them in multiple delivery of content area, like have another teacher show it or videos on the concepts. And the TED Ed are amazing. Now you can also use them, have students create videos. Kids today are obsessed with DIY videos and product reviews. You can capitalize on this enthusiasm and have them write a how-to paper or review under the guise of becoming a YouTuber. And then again, you have to be able to navigate the computer and recording devices, the content knowledge, you're targeting a lot of different things. 21st century skills again. You have presenting, you have listening, primary and secondary sources, nonfiction. And then the pedagogical knowledge, you're doing differentiation, blended learning, are just a few examples. And then the last one here is Wonderopolis. This website has wonders of the day. You can also write into them and say something that you're wondering, and sometimes you can vote on it, and then they'll create based on what students write in that they want. They have all different types of categories. If you look, here's another one that I used during the Halloween. They learned about mummification. They have Wonder World. They have video, and then I would give them a handout where they have to extract the main idea and supporting details, vocabulary words, draw a picture and a caption for it. This is also kind of like cyclical because you're always expecting them to identify evidence, but also when you're writing, they have to be able to do this for themselves. So this is another way of teaching them. And again, you have the background knowledge, 21st century skills, comprehension, the differentiation. And when you put all of these things together, you create an environment that you're really touching upon a lot of the trends in education. And now let me send it over to Stephen, who's next.
Thank you. So the first implementation here I have of technology is computer coding, specifically the hour of code. It's something that I use in my technology class. The hour of code runs every December, and it offers a free opportunity for teachers to show their students computer coding from a very basic level up to some more advanced levels. And what I like about it is that some of these activities are quite fun, such as being able to create and modify your own Angry Birds game. There's Minecraft on there, which kids seem to like, and then Frozen or probably some of the top 3-1 games on there. The programming activities on there use a block-based programming language, which is Scratch-based. There are more advanced options on there that use text-based coding, such as Python or JavaScript. The drag and drop programming that you can do with this seems to increase the access that people have to coding, where it's not something that you have to spend a long time studying or practicing before you're able to jump right into it. So with this hour of code, you're able to get started right away, and in 1 hour, you're able to complete at least one, if not a handful of smaller activities. Let me go on here. There we go. So for our content knowledge, it's computer science. Pedagogical knowledge, we have either independent learning or collaborative groups, depending on how you want to approach it. Students could work in pairs or groups. Students will work with computers or tablets. In addition to the hour of code, there's the code.org website, which has its own curriculum that can be used. And I use this as well. It offers free courses that could be used for entire quarters or semesters of classes for students in grades K through 8. Could probably even be used at the high school level, and they're self-paced with the students. The teachers can monitor the progress, and it seems like a very good way to get students introduced to coding, and the best part is it's all free. All right. Augmented reality with the Quiver app. Once I discovered this, I had to buy it, and it's had a pretty good reaction from the students. So basically what this allows you to do is to draw by hand on a piece of paper, then you scan it with your either tablet or phone, and it takes the picture that you drew and turns it into a augmented reality experience. But as you can see my note there, it is important to note that the images that this works with have to be specifically downloaded from the Quiver website. There's many that are free, but there are images that you have to pay for in addition to buying the app. So these cover a bunch of educational topics, and there's also some that are in there just for fun, one of which, for example, is just drawing a dragon, and when you bring it into the augmented reality situation, you could have the dragon fly around and spit fire out. But some of the topics include science, social studies, geography. I like that it provides something different than just a regular classroom experience. It's something you don't see every day. One of my favorite activities I've played around with in there is that you can color in a cell like that you would use for biology, and all of the parts within the cell, and then it'll actually give you a quiz when you bring it into the augmented reality that you could look at it and identify the different parts. So pretty cool. And now I had an embedded video here, which I'll try to show at the end, since it doesn't seem to work by clicking on it here. So this fits into many different subjects for content knowledge: art, science, social studies, geography. It could be used for direct instruction, individual, creative design, and the technological knowledge required. Well, you would need either mobile devices, a tablet, a phone, and internet or Wi-Fi access. The next implementation was for STEM and 3D printing, the use of the web-based app Tinkercad. Since our district got a 3D printer, I've used this a lot. It's a free web-based application that lets you design anything from a very basic, simple, just dropping a block to print a square on a 3D printer, to some more advanced things. For example, students have designed their own phone cases using that. That seems to always be a pretty popular option. So it's great that you can have this where you can make something very simple and easy with a very light learning curve on it, or something quite complicated. In order to access it, you do need to make an account, which is free, and it does give you unlimited cloud-based storage. The best part about using a tool like this is if students design something and it fails, they can see where they need to make their corrections and fix and rework things until they get it right. So here we have science, technology, or engineering. You could probably also fit mathematics in there. Independent exploration, collaborative groups, and for technology, 3D printing, computers, web-based design software. Now, the next one. Google Translate. We got the free mobile app, allows text input using the device's camera. It translates text in a new feature in an augmented reality-like environment. Again, I had another video there, but I'll see if I can show that at the end since it doesn't seem to play embedded here. I've used this with some of my ELL students, and it works translating from a computer screen using a camera on an iPad or a phone. It'll work on a textbook. Seems to be a great way to help differentiate instruction for students that can't otherwise read what you are reading if you don't have the if you don't have the text available in their language. And this could fall under all academic subjects. It could be used independently or in a group, and pretty much any mobile device that will run Google Translate. And my last one here is one-to-one Chromebooks. They provide a low-cost and lightweight option to provide a device for every student. They have the ability to run cloud-based G Suite apps for education to allow students to collaborate on assignments. Let's see. Yep. They could help eliminate access issues for those unable to afford a device for schoolwork, depending on if a district allows students to take home the devices. It helps to increase access and exposure to a technology-rich environment, and it should encourage teachers to better integrate technology in their instruction. It could be used in all academic subjects. It encourages collaborative learning, and the technology would be computer and cloud-based software applications. Now I'm going to quickly try to see if I can show a brief clip of those two videos before we move on here. Bear with me, I hope this works. Please let me know if you can see this. So that's an example of the Google Translate working, and then really quickly I'm going to show an example of the Quiver app. Okay, and that was the Quiver app. And now I will turn it over to Rachel.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear me from the beginning or no? Okay.
No, I think you're
right.
good now.
My apologies. Interactive whiteboards have been around for some time and in various forms, from educators purchasing materials for creating portable whiteboards from plexiglass or MDF coated with acrylic to the technology equivalent Promethean boards found in schools today. The use of this technology often does not significantly lend itself to collaboration with all students, and there will remain students who are marginalized. Two of the tools I'm sharing today will give voice to all students.
I can hear you.
Padlet and Stoodle. Are we still good? Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So Stoodle and Padlet, two of the tools that I'm sharing today are going to hopefully give voice to all students, and that's the Padlet and Stoodle. Stoodle and Padlet are both online tools with free and premium options. The free options have quite rich experiences for students and allow the students to share their session in a variety of ways, whether it be via Twitter, as an image, or Facebook. They can share it with their teacher. They can push it out if they're using Google Classroom to their teacher, or they can push it out to their classmates or teammates in a classroom setting. They can be used by any subject to or any instance where you're going to have collaboration tools needed. Any internet connected device. It's relatively simple to implement. They are cross-curricular. You can implement your 21st century skills, career readiness practices through collaboration and things like brainstorming. You could do a research lesson with evidence to support the assertions, because you could put videos in both Padlet and Stoodle. You can add in a PDF document. You can add in links to a Google document. You can save these and share them at a later date. As far as pedagogical knowledge, it fits varying pedagogies depending on what that teacher is trying to accomplish when using either Padlet or Stoodle. The main difference, well, Stoodle, just a little background, was developed, what I thought was quite impressive, was developed by a high school student in 2011 to allow users to collaborate in real time without the barriers of distance, while allowing for permanent storage of a work product. The main differences between the two are the ease of setting up and using Stoodle, and I think Stoodle was the easiest of the two, and it's a very simple and clean design. Padlet allows for a more creative end product, but it's still very, very user-friendly. The next tool I have for you is Nearpod. So Nearpod, if you're not familiar with it, allows the teacher to control the lesson. They can create an interactive presentation. You share in the classroom in real time. Your students will interact with the lesson on their devices, whether it be an iPad, a phone, or as long as it's internet connected. They can interact with the lesson. And as of this recording, there are over 2,000 pre-made lessons for elementary school, more than 1,800 lessons for middle school instruction, and more than 2,300 for adding for high school. And they've also added in a virtual reality to the lesson that uses content such as social studies, math, English, language arts, science, and a few other topics like mine, personal finance. And what this does is, at this time, there's only about 100 lessons, but the room for growth is quite significant. This is one of the few items that I use that is a fee-for service, but I believe that the fee is quite worth it, given that I'm not marginalizing any student. Everybody, I can see how every student is doing in real time. I monitor them, and I can measure both individual and aggregate responses to something that we're doing in class. The next one I have for you is Google Expeditions. And let me go back, I apologize. In Nearpod, we need a computer with internet access. We do need a few more bits of technological knowledge here, and that's something a lot of teachers are not real familiar with, and that's the virtual reality. But the students are aware of this. If they have a virtual reality enabled device, along with which would be like a cell phone. A lot of the students have these apps, Google Cardboard, on their cell phones, and a virtual reality viewing device, which they can go anywhere from $10 to, I've seen them as high as $100. That's going to depend on what access you have at your school. We have cross-curricular content application here. We have, again, 21st century skills, and we hit a lot of the Common Core standards in here. We have differentiation. We have data-driven information, and we have, I see that. We have differentiated information, data-driven, and formative and summative assessments. In the next slide, we're going to take a look at Google Expeditions. In Google Expeditions, we can take our students on field trips, especially when budgeting and weather delays like we're having here in New Jersey today are preventing us from traveling within the state. We can actually now travel around the world, and in fact into outer space and underwater via Google Expeditions. I believe there are over 280 different Google Expeditions that we can take our students on. The app for the expeditions, for the guide, and for the students is free. What you do need, though, in this one is some technological knowledge. It's not insane. There are a lot of tools out there that are available. You need to have a peer-to-peer router. You have to have a VR viewer device, a Wi-Fi enabled device, and just download the Google Expeditions app. The 21st century skills are in here. You have your Common Core standards, your pedagogical knowledge. This is what I would consider direct instruction, because the students are being led by the guide, who is the teacher in the classroom, and the students become the explorers. My last one for today is probably hands down my absolute favorite. So this is Edpuzzle. And with Edpuzzle, you can make any video your lesson. And there are 4 things you can do with that lesson. The first thing you can do is take a lesson from pretty much anywhere. Vimeo, you can use a lesson that you've created using, say, a Snagit, and you can embed questions. You can also use a YouTube video as well. And you can embed those questions at certain points within the video. You can prevent students from fast-forwarding or rewinding, not rewinding, you can prevent them from fast-forwarding so that they can kind of skip through to the end and just try to answer all the questions without actually reading or watching the video. You can ask open-ended or multiple-choice questions, and then at the end of it, you can look at the data on who watched the videos, who answered the questions, and you can grade the questions within the app. You can give individual and group feedback on the responses to the questions. You can see where the students were struggling, and this is probably the reason I like it the most, is because if I'm teaching a concept or reviewing a concept that I'm told they learned in a previous grade, such as compound interest, I can see that at certain points of the video, they've rewatched 5 and 6 and sometimes 7 times to be able to get it right. So I know that that's something I really need to focus on in class. So there's my data-driven instruction. There's also the option that while I'm taping over I can also add my own recording over a video. If there's something in there that I really like the images that are displayed in the video, I don't necessarily like or think it's appropriate for my students what's said on the video, I can record over it so that I could still use the quality of the video without having to get parent permission sometimes because of the the words that might have been used in the video. Another thing that I like is that continuity. I can download an app that will take whatever I'm watching on YouTube and send it to Edpuzzle for me to edit it and put in all those questions. That's a Chrome browser extension. And then I can further extend that use by pushing it out to all my students in Google Classroom and assign it to specific students within my Google Classroom. So this kind of allows for a smoother transition between the use of all of these tools. That ends my portion of tonight's reviews, and I'm going to turn my microphone over to Leah. Leah?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So, whoops, let me get over here. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be talking to you about two tools that I use on a regular basis in my classroom to help with reading comprehension. The first is Digital ReadWorks, and the second is called Read Theory. They are similar to the Time Edge and Newsela that Anna discussed, but each one of these programs has different strengths and weaknesses. One benefit of both of mine is that they're both free programs. The data for Read Theory is a little more robust, but it doesn't offer a teacher the way to select what the student reads. A computer algorithm actually controls the passages that a reader will encounter. But a benefit for Read Theory is that the articles tend to be shorter, and while that is good for students getting through and getting to the questions, it's not the best tool if you want to work on developing their reading stamina, like when they'll encounter a longer passage on state testing. So what I'm going to focus our discussions on is how these different circles, the technological, the content, and the pedagogical, the most important areas of these are where they intersect. So the data from both of these programs allows educators to see which questions students have answered incorrectly. So Read Theory, for example, uses that data to adjust the Lexile level of future passages and tracks that student's progression over time. Both of them also have audio available, which makes it accessible for your students if you might have someone with a visual impairment, for instance. The vocabulary is presented in context, and it gives them the ability to differentiate. Those are both huge benefits to the program. And they both feature a wide variety of texts from multiple disciplines and of various lengths. And all of these features combine to make both of these great tools for ELA teachers. And I briefly want to just show you what they kind of look like. So this is ReadWorks. The benefit to this program is that the teacher has control over what the passages will be. So you can assign everybody the same one, but on their own level. As you can see from the circled section, there are many different subject areas that you can choose from, and the website has over 3,000 different articles. This next slide is an example of a student of mine who actually took a quiz, and they did not do great. I think they missed 3 out of the 5 questions, which was kind of disappointing, but I can go back with her and show her exactly, okay, well, see this you missed, so let's go back and look at the passage and figure out why we missed it. So it's really great to be able to pinpoint the exact area where they didn't understand. The next 2 slides I'm going to share with you are from the other program, which is called Read Theory. And as you can see, it tracks their Lexile progression over time. And you can see where it's gone up and down when a student would get a certain score, like it shows you here. Let's look down here. I don't know, can you guys see my cursor? I hope. I'm pointing at the bottom of the screen on the 13th. Where this student missed 42%. Ooh, that wasn't great. So it decreased his Lexile level. The next time he got 100%, so it increased his Lexile level, and it's really great to be able to see that progression. Next, I want to talk with you about some story creation tools that your students can use to get them creating in the classroom. And I'm going to focus on 3 specific tools: Storybird, Animoto, and NaNoWriMo. And I want to, again, talk with you about those areas of intersection, the overlap between the circles. The technological knowledge here combines with the content knowledge to give students a springboard of inspiration. They just kind of remove the barriers to creativity and give students a place to start, which is incredibly powerful. These activities are immensely motivating to students, and they really get them to practice and use those 21st century skills. The collaboration and the creation aspects make these tools a valuable asset to any classroom. So this screenshot is an example of Animoto, and it's a really simple tool to use. You upload digital pictures, and then you can make slideshows set to music. Then those slideshows can be shared and even downloaded. I've actually used them even in my kindergarten class to make videos of our sight words. The kids loved seeing themselves on screen, and I noticed a huge improvement in their sight word recognition after just watching that video a few times. They would always know, especially the word that they were in, but then they saw all their friends and wanted to learn those words as well. You could also have students do a scavenger hunt, like as a culminating activity, and then put their findings into a video. Or you could use it as a way to wrap up a novel study by having students create a video embodying the major themes of a book. So really there are just tons of possibilities here. And I don't know if you guys, I don't know if the link will work. The lesson ideas at the top of this slide is actually a link. I don't know if it'll let you click on it or not, but if it won't, I can share the link with you later. It actually shows you on readwritethink.org, they have a whole page full of lesson plans using this tool of Animoto. So the next screenshot, this is from Storybird. Storybird is a way of giving kids writing by giving them art to write about. By rearranging the pictures, they tease out a storyline, and there are several options. You can choose from a long-form picture book, a short-form picture book, or poetry. And there are tons of different art styles. This is an example of what you would get from the poetry option. It gives you all of the different vocabulary words, and you play around with it until you have something that you like. It's basically kind of like that magnetic poetry, if you've ever played with that. And since I like poetry and I like magnetic poetry, of course, this really called out to me. And it's really great for getting kids who didn't ever think they could write poetry. Yes, you can, and here's the proof. So the last thing I'm going to talk about tonight is my favorite thing I have done all year long, and it's called NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo stands for National Novel Writing Month, and it is a huge thing that happens every November. And it isn't just for kids. Grown-ups do this also, and I mean hundreds of thousands of people participate. It is awesome. It is an incredible community to belong to. So the goal for National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo as we call it, is to write 50,000 words, yes, 50,000 words in 30 days. But for the Young Writers Program, which my kids participated in, we set an age-appropriate goal. For my 6th graders, their goal was 1,200 words. The dashboard, which is what you're seeing here on the screen, is a great resource that has everything a young writer could possibly need. And when they reach their word goal, you see they get a little digital trophy and a special You Did It video that's only visible to people who complete the project. And of the 15 kids participating with me this year, only 1 did not reach the goal. And I think that's pretty incredible that 14 kids gave up their afternoons to come and sit in a room and write a novel. And as you can see from our word count, we surpassed our goal by far. The forums are really one of the hidden gems of this program. Kids can get on there and they can talk to other young writers, you know, people who are their age, who are also participating, about problems that they're having. They can get encouragement, they can share what kind of block they're having, they can say, hey, I've got this character, I don't know what to do with him, what would you do? And you know, really pick each other's brains and see what other people are doing. It is a super cool experience. I could talk about this all night long, but I'm going to let Rachel wrap it up for us.
Okay, today we reviewed 20 tools that touch on various aspects of technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge, or TPAC. Under content knowledge tools, we looked at several technology tools that rely on the knowledge of content concepts, theories, ideas, and organizational frameworks to include those that garner developing knowledge. Under pedagogical knowledge, you might say that all 20 tools address this area of the Venn diagram, and that each of the tools discussed encompasses the teacher's educational purpose, classroom skills, lesson planning, or assessments. Under technology knowledge, when we work with technology tools such as those demonstrated this evening, and we are teaching or using these tools to broaden, assist, or attain a specified goal, we are demonstrating technology knowledge on the Venn diagram. When we add content knowledge to pedagogical and technological, we demonstrated tools that will bridge the gap between technology and content. As Kohler and Mishra say, teachers need to understand how the content dictates or perhaps even changes the technology or vice versa. Using these tools outlined today, educators can demonstrate effective teaching with constructive ways to engage with content, build on students' existing knowledge, to develop new epistemologies, or strengthen old ones. We thank you for tuning in tonight, and we will be sending shortly our slides. And if you have any questions, now is the time to ask.
I have a little comment about Google Translate.
Okay.
Okay, as a foreign language teacher, I'm really concerned about Google Translate, and I don't allow my students to use it because of so many reasons. First of all, Google Translate is known as being really inaccurate and lacking of good translation. In fact, many times it gives unnatural and simply a wrong translation. Another reason also, on top of making a lot of mistakes, the quality of Google Translate vary from a language to another one. Maybe it could be good on Spanish, but doesn't do perfect job with Italian or maybe French. The biggest concern with Google Translate is the Google policy. There's no the privacy issue. There is no privacy in that. Whatever you put in that text box, it will actually is sold to a third party as in marketing companies. That's really my concern.
That's very interesting, and I believe that if they want to move on to the acceptance in education, they probably need to adhere to some of the FERPA policies, and it sounds like your experience is that they don't.
Yeah. And also the user has no idea if actually the translation is correct or not. There is no, there's no control, no quality control.
So I can get myself conceivably in a very uncomfortable position.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, and Hyatt, I'm glad you brought that up because I had actually, last year I had an English language learner in my classroom, and his mother, of course, didn't speak English, and I had used Google Translate a couple of times to send a note home to her, and I had that same concern. I was like, I don't know if this is actually giving me an accurate translation, and honestly, I didn't even know if she could read at all, even my poor Spanish translation. I never figured out how well I was doing at it, so I really am appreciative that you brought that up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move it along. Thanks for the presentation. It was chock full of great ideas. We'll go on to the next group. I've given you all group 3 moderator privileges. If you don't have them, let me know. I'm just going to turn the video off on anyone in the other group who has it. So, oh, it's already up. Okay, so let me just start whenever, and I'll just click behind you. Okay, you could start fire when ready.
Hey everyone, we'll go with some video for tonight for our group. Our group actually took a very similar approach to the first group that went. We're looking at 20 educational technology tools under the context of the SAMR model. We do take a slightly different approach. Each of us is going to use our particular expertise to talk through the technology tools, and you'll notice, I'll go to our next slide here. You'll notice the SAMR, the little circles that are there. They're going to show up on many of our slides as to where we feel that this particular technology we're talking about relates to the SAMR model just by virtue of using it. But at the same time, we're going to recognize that, you know, much like many of the tools we've seen tonight, if someone's using a technology tool at its most very basic level, it's possible just to stay at the substitution, you know, but when we start talking about some of the tools that we have, you'll see how the use in, whether it's a science classroom, whether it's the use in physical therapy, you know, through an administration perspective, you know, how the SAMR model, you know, can connect with these technology tools. So I believe that we have Alex first.
All right. So I'm going to start out with my own kind of signature area of interest, which is virtual reality. But I'm going to be putting all five of my technologies in the context of the science classroom because I'm a high school science teacher, and there is a lot of cool tech that I like to integrate on not always a daily basis, but on as close of a daily basis as possible. The virtual reality kind of being one that sort of blew everybody's mind when we got it. I think probably everybody's familiar with what virtual reality is. It was mentioned in a couple of the other presentations. But, you know, basically these immersive virtual worlds that, you know, we take field trips whenever we can, but, you know, finances don't always allow us to do that. And, you know, certain places are just not practical to go. I mean, you're not going to go to the moon on a field trip. So, you know, virtual reality offers the possibility to really go places that you wouldn't be able to go otherwise. You know, using it in science, I use it a lot in anatomy and physiology. I also use it for modeling, you know, different three-dimensional structures, going through genetics or, you know, the evolution of a particular animal. And right now, to be honest, there's not a whole lot of programming available for it. You kind of have to be creative and maybe get in touch with a software company like we did to basically say, hey, we'll test pilot your stuff for you. And so they're basically sending us stuff on almost a daily basis, which is really cool. Obviously an expensive investment here. That this is actually, I kind of took the plunge and bought this personally. I didn't ask the school to pay for it, which I could have, but I'm like, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to hold on to this for now. Plus I take it home on the weekend, so it's fun. Anyway, alternatives to full-fledged virtual reality include the BYOD headsets that bring your own device where the kids can snap their cell phone into it. You know, they're not as sophisticated. They're a little sketchier as far as frame rate and things like that, but still very, very cool for science. Next one, which was mentioned before, the student response systems or clickers. These are kind of, I'm going to go out on a limb and call them sort of a fading trend, at least in my classroom. And, you know, I know that I don't speak for everybody. But they are formative assessment technology. They're kind of an ask the audience type of thing, like, you know, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you know, put your answer in. You know, they work really well in a teacher-centered classroom. You know, when, you know, a teacher is lecturing and they want to solicit instantaneous feedback, it's really great for that. But, you know, as far as a student-centered classroom, you know, there are applications, you know, for, you know, remote check-ins, exit tickets, things like that. But they're definitely, their luster has, at least in my mind, definitely worn off in a student-centered science classroom. And, you know, they are an expensive investment. You know, they're not cheap, and the software actually is on a subscription basis now, at least for the company that we're using, which really kind of caught us off guard. You know, we did purchase the one-time license, but the company did a bait-and-switch tactic with us. They're like, oh, no, your license isn't valid. You now need to purchase it annually, and it was a big to-do. But, you know, nowadays there are apps on cell phones and Chromebook apps, you know, that substitute for these clickers. So unless you really want something that, you know, is sort of isolated, that's not attached to the internet, you know, that those kids can't cheat, or at least it's harder to cheat with them, you know, it's kind of, there's still options for using them. And you'll notice at the bottom of most of our slides, we have some research articles for further review if you wanted to read further on any of them. They're in our bibliography, which we actually put an attachment for in a Google Doc, as opposed to just sticking in a slide. Moving on, this is one that I really love and I'm really passionate about, and that is probeware and data loggers. In science, we have the Next Generation Science Standards, which is a new set of standards for us. I know new standards are not always popular, but at least I love the Next Generation Standards because they really, for years we would complain to say, we got to teach too much. We can't stop do these great inquiry projects. We don't have time. Particularly in biology, we have an end of course test to take, and we basically have to keep on a schedule. Next Generation Science Standards came along and said, you know what? We're going to take some of the material off. We're going to take some of the material off your plate. There's your extra time. So really, we get to do a lot of extra stuff. In terms of branding, we use the Vernier products, which, again, as all three of my technologies thus far have been, they're an investment. They're not cheap. And I realize that, I'm kind of in a fortunate situation to have them. But, we don't have to be using them every day. They're not a tool that, I don't use them every day or in every lab. But every now and then it's great to have kids collecting their own data. Next Generation Science Standards, it's about engineering, it's about big picture, it's about asking questions, it's also about data. Looking at actual scientific data and making sense of it, and students collecting their own data where possible. And yeah, collecting data doesn't have to be, you put a probe in a beaker and look at the temperature of it, or you measure the water uptake of a leaf. You could go outside and, measure shadows. That's data collection. But probeware and data loggers are really cool in that, they're a techie thing, so the kids are into them. They really can do a lot. We're in, I think Stephanie can agree with me right now, we're in research season right now. It's had a lot of science fairs lately, and in terms of these research projects that are, winning and, really top tier stuff, you need data, and you need a lot of data, and really these probes and the computer hookups really make light work of it. And I didn't mean to take for granted. If anyone wasn't sure what probeware is, basically you have these instruments, whether it be a temperature probe or a turbidity sensor. If you're wading out into the middle of the stream, you want to see how cloudy it is. pH. My students here are measuring, doing some photometry with chlorophyll. It's one of my favorite experiments of the year. Basically it plugs into a little computer size of a small brick, or it plugs right into a computer, and it'll collect data for you. It'll record those measurements for you over time. It really makes light work of this stuff. And, as with all of my technologies thus far, except the clickers, redefinition. It's really a game-changing experience. I mean, you can really do a whole lot of things you could never have done before with it. And just to back up just for a moment, because I omitted, I'm going to classify the clickers as augmenting. We're still assessing, but we're doing so in a different way. So I just wanted to go back there for the sake of completeness. Arduino and Raspberry Pi, very, very cool stuff. I'm not an engineering teacher. Our engineering kids are down the hall every day. There's robots flying around and running around the floor, and they have these Arduinos and Raspberry Pis in some cases, at the heart of them. Robotics, my school is known for the robotics program. Basically, they're short computer. Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, they have slightly different applications. A Raspberry Pi is a really tiny computer, about maybe half the size of a cell phone. An Arduino is basically a part of a computer. But the point is, it gets kids into programming things. Robots are obviously the most popular thing that they're used for, but really they could be used for just about anything. again, engineering classes use them a lot. But again, this coding trend, getting kids to actually learn to code. I mean, it's almost like a foreign language. Kids love to do it because the sense of accomplishment is just totally awesome. And this is a redefinition application as well. And just to kind of tell you a little bit about the picture here, there's a group of my students. We were down at the Steam Tank Challenge in Atlantic City. Last year, the New Jersey School Board Association sponsored it. It was basically like Shark Tank, but you had to take a technology and reinvent it. So they built this little robotic submarine. I mean, it's basically PVC pipe and some propellers and a GoPro on the front of it. But there's also a Raspberry Pi. That is basically the heart of it, and it controls. It's the brain of the whole thing. The thing can navigate around obstacles, not very well, but it was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of potential there with it. And finally, the last thing we're going to talk to you guys about is Lego Mindstorms. It was spoken about already. I would like to say that this is sort of like a little introduction to programming and robotics, but it's really not. I mean, you can get really cool stuff. Basically, it's kind of like a sort of like a drag and drop robotics interface where Lego makes it. You can build 1,000 different models. I mean, the sky's the limit. Your imagination is the limit. This one, they actually taught it to do a Sudoku puzzle, which my mind is blown at how that actually works. But they figured out a way to make it work. Again, so it's kind of along the same lines as Arduino, Raspberry Pi, in that it's great for teaching programming skills. There's apps for it, so that, they can drive the thing with their phone. It's reusable, but again, just like almost everything I've discussed here today, there's a high initial investment. And while that can be seen as a roadblock, if you get a little creative with grant opportunities, and one of the things I tell people all the time, people who ask me, how do you have all this stuff? You've got probes, you've got virtual reality, you've got this, you've got that. I say, I do grants for it. And they say, oh, grants, it must be so hard. And, I say, well, they're not easy, but they're probably easier than you think they are. There's a lot of companies who are just they're ready and willing to throw money at you. You basically just have to do a little bit of paperwork to say, here's how I'm going to spend it, and here's how it's going to benefit you. So that being said, I know I'm running over time a little bit. I'm going to pass the torch to, I forget who's taking it from here, but the Great New Technologies. Okay, thanks, guys.
Okay, let's go next. All right. Okay, today's students are moving beyond the basics and embracing the 4 C's, as known as super skills for the 21st century: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. There's a small video here that I wish that you can see. I don't think you can click on it. Maybe if we have time at the end, we can watch it. It's very interesting, showing how kids nowadays they ask to go beyond the regular scales. Today I'm going to share with you 5 technologies leading to augmented or completely redefined tasks by allowing to add overlay pictures, audio, or video to tell a story, and also new presentation tools at the highest level of creating content or a technology-rich production such as iMovie or Creative Book Builder. As we know, SAMR model is the framework that that teachers can reflect on when they want to design and evaluate tasks that target higher order thinking skills and student engagement using technology. Also, as it's illustrated here in the picture, in the latest version of the Pedagogy Wheel by Alan Carrington, my 5 examples fit into that pink area. It's the higher level of in SAMR model where you see create. So I'm going to be talking about augmented reality and QR codes, iMovies, and creative book builders. Usually, educators start with technologies that are at substitution and augmentation level, gradually moving into modification and redefinition as they become more comfortable with the technology. Others may jump quickly into modification and redefinition, trusting that they will be able to adapt as needed. So my first technology is augmented reality, as it was presented before. It's definitely a technology that allows the completion of a task that cannot be done without the use of augmented reality. It's a whole new task. It's a new way to access and present information. In this case, it falls into the redefinition level. However, it could be used at any level of SAMR depending on the task design and also depending on the direction of AR. According to research, there are 5 different directions of AR in education: discovery-based learning, object modeling, AR books, and skill training, and AR gaming. For example, most of the teachers who are using Orasma, it's mainly used for the first direction discovery basis, where you can scan something and a trigger image where you can see something like an augmentation or a video or a text or even a 3D object coming up. You discover something out of that picture. My second one is the quick response code, known as QR code. QR codes are two-dimensional barcodes now commonly used in a wide range of fields. Used to be especially in advertising, and now they went over to education. By scanning a little image consisting of black little squares in a white background, it can link to video, audio, maps, or computerized voice speaking, text, etc. Just like AR, the use of a QR code can vary from a level to another one through a SAMR model. It can be an augmentation level when you supplement content with additional information. It could be also a modification when you have a new design, and also it can be also at the redefinition level. Example, like QR code in the library that gives student books, give a book video review. For advanced use of QR code, you can see more, especially for that. I have a link here showing that you can see how they use QR code to tell a story. It's very interesting link that gives you access to QR code generator website, and also how to design a lesson with QR code. And also, it's an interesting alternative reality game using QR code. iMovies. iMovies in Bloom digital taxonomy, it corresponds to the highest level of order thinking with terms like create, evaluate, and synthesize. In pedagogy wheel, it's also under the redefinition as to create something imperceptibly new task. Students learn at the same time content and skills in support of information, as they support the challenge of creating professional quality video in most importantly, sharing with outside the classroom audience. And you can see also in iMovie, it can be in modification level of SAMR when you redesign the task for, like, before they may use a PowerPoint to present something. It's the same task could be done through iMovie. At the redefinition level, students may create collaboratively with others, classmates, as a team. They collaborate, they create new concepts through iMovie. The third technology that I would like to share is Creative Book Builder. This is an interesting application. They have a premium version of it where you can, it's really a creative book builder. It's like an interactive tool. Creative Book Builder is a powerful, flexible, and professional ebook generator tool. Students can create books from scratch or existing content, simple or complex. They can exercise their creative skills through multimedia storytelling while learning how to create and edit text and image. And also, Creative Book Builder enables you to build content in an efficient way. it also allows for new tasks that were previously inconceivable. For a project, for example, students could develop text, video, or embed it in their book. And as you can see, the A and R, so it could be at least at two levels. The augmentation level, where you can create a story and make the story with video and images and sound that you're augmenting. You make it more interesting, or students can create a story or just give a topic and they have to create the whole story, a concept, or from scratch. That could be at redefinition level. The last one is the Edpuzzle. As it was presented previously today, the best assessments are fun, casual, and not very assessment like at all. So that way Edpuzzle can be the best formative assessment where we can use video as a way to keep students engaged and assess their understanding. It works by adding assessment questions and own voice sometimes to video as students watch them. So when the students are watching the video, some question will pop up, or even the teacher voice will give some explanation or remarks regarding the video. This technology can be placed at the highest level of SAMR to the advanced features, transforming the learning, collaborative work as a team, and sharing that's beyond the classroom. That's where the highest level of SAMR could be observed. And another example of language learner, at the augmentation level, it could be shown when you add an authentic spoken language, which is a source. That's an augmentation to everyday video. The best thing about Edpuzzle is when a teacher, it's on the teacher side, when we can access the report that shows which student watched the video, the number of questions are answered correctly, and also the completion time. Yes, I think this is it. And my final words are: the right integration of technology allows learning to be more effective and efficient. And now I think I'm going to let me send it over to David. Thank you.
Pardon me. So when I'm talking about the 5 tech tools that I discussed, I'm looking from an administrative level. You know, when I am encouraging a teacher to use a tool, let's say such as Blogger, you know, I want the teacher to get beyond the replacement of you know, writing something down on a notebook or putting something into a Google Doc, and really asking them to, you know, take it up a notch. You know, having them encourage the students to take ownership of their writing, their work, put it on an interactive space where they can get comments, they can get feedback, they can continue to improve whatever writing they've created. You know, by using Blogger effectively, you can continue to move students along the SAMR model, and ultimately even the students could work to redefine what that blog can do, and can use SAMR model themselves to say, you know what, I'm going to do something that no one's ever done before. You know, perhaps it turns into, you know, a lifelong ambition for the student because of a tech tool that the teacher has used. You know, the blogs that the students create, depending on the subject area, can even be used to create a portfolio of student work to demonstrate their knowledge and skills over, you know, a long-term period of time. You know, so the tool of Blogger, although it has the ability of just being a tech tool where a student does writing, you know, just like they would on a notebook at a very substitutive level, could also be used to be much more interactive and redefine students' learning. Similar to the discussions we've had so far about interactive whiteboards, we want to move the use of interactive whiteboards. We want to put interactive whiteboards into the classrooms, not because we want just another way to project information, another way for a teacher, instead of having to walk back to the computer to click their mouse, they can now click on the board or use the pen. We want them truly to start to question how can they make the classroom more interactive. Can they introduce group games? Can they introduce group note-taking? How can they, you know, how can they use the tool. And I think Yalitza talked about it before, not having to erase, being able to take the information that's up on an interactive board and maybe connect the information to a learning management system, which I'll discuss later, how learning management systems work. But really, if you're going to move up the SAMR ladder with an interactive whiteboard, hopefully you're looking for collaborative, interactive activities, or if you're using something like the Smart or Promethean boards, you could even connect with fellow teachers across the country, across the world, and pull in lesson plans, teaching concepts and ideas that someone else has already created, and that in itself, you're now going above and beyond just I as the teacher am creating a lesson for my students, but I'm collaborating with my colleagues to really make my classroom more engaging. As we move on into the idea of flipped classroom, although it's not necessarily related to a specific technology tool, the idea of it is actually connected with one-to-one learning. It's connected with the idea of redefining the classroom environment for students. One of the beauties of a flipped classroom is it can be device agnostic, whether it's a cell phone that students have regularly, whether it's iPads or Chromebooks or laptops, bring your own device, whatever it is that students have to work with, they have the ability of connecting into a flipped classroom. One of the things that, this is actually a screenshot from a video from Edutopia, one of the things that they talk about with the idea of access even is, as a teacher, if I know a student doesn't have access to any of those things I've mentioned before, giving them a USB drive or burning information to a DVD, finding a way for the students to have access at home helps, again, to redefine the classroom. One of the things that this video talks about is the idea that, we need to also teach the students how to learn from video technology. The flipped classroom allows that to happen. It allows students to really ask the question and learn how to engage with information. And we do it every day because of the course that we're in. We have to know how to synthesize the information that comes out and know when to fast forward or pause, take notes, whatever the case may be. Students need to be taught that to really learn and understand it. And what the flipped classroom really allows is for teachers to regain control, instructional control of the time that they have those students in front of them. As a former math teacher, the time that I found most beneficial for students was when I was reviewing homework with them, going over practice problems, the times that I'm hearing what they're thinking about a particular problem, a particular idea, when I'm standing at the front of the room providing them with a theorem for geometry or a postulate or going through an example of a proof. That's great. A percentage of the students are going to connect with that, but the flipped classroom allows for an increased amount of time for students to really talk with each other and one another. The three last things that are kind of mentioned in that little picture, the safeguards, the perfection, and the start small. You do want to consider how you're going to safeguard your classroom. That's something for teachers to decide, whether you're going to have a do now at the beginning or an entrance ticket that proves to you in some way that the students watch the video. Don't try to make your first videos perfect, and you want to start small. Actually, the feedback in this Edutopia video, and it's even linked in the resources on the left, is 1 to 1.5 minutes per grade level. So a student in 10th grade shouldn't be getting a video longer than 10 to 15 minutes, in the flipped classroom model. The next set of tools really is the Google collaboration tools I'm going to talk about. And again, even just the design of the tools would be easy to think about how it would just be a substitution. If you're using a Google Doc, it's easy to think that you're just taking the idea of a piece of paper, an idea of group work, and just putting it online. But again, the learning that students are getting for the idea of synchronous and asynchronous collaboration and communication skills allows it really to be an augmented tool, and how the different tools work together. Even for anyone in this presentation group who use Google Slides to create a presentation, if we were able to present through Google, we'd be able to use like the audience tools, which would allow us to just change the way that we present a simple PowerPoint. So again, the Google collaboration tools, if used well, really can redefine learning within every classroom across the country, especially as a free tool if schools so choose. The last thing I'm going to talk about is learning management systems and the ideas of cloud storage. The idea is that, what happens in the classroom only is what's learned. The idea that an individual student's notebook or an individual teacher's grade book, whatever the case may be, it's only seen at a specific point in time. No, the LMS really redefines how teachers and students, students and parents and teachers, how they all interact with one another. It increases transparency for the classroom. The syllabus and assignments and assessments are all much more transparent for students and parents. An LMS used properly can truly redefine. I know for our school we use Canvas. All announcements, all gradebook information, all of the content that students submit is submitted through an LMS. Everything is connected into one place. Now, obviously, teachers are encouraged to use a variety of tools outside of the LMS, but many of the tools, as they get bigger, the LMSs are writing in and finding a way to have them connect because they don't want schools or districts going into a different system. At this point, though, I'm going to pass it over to Michael, who will kind of close out, and look forward to questions at the end.
Thank you, David. I am going to give you a perspective of a healthcare provider in the use of technology in learning. So let's begin. 3D design and printing. So to understand that, I think a theory that best describes the use of 3D design and printing in learning is the theory of constructionism. So they say people learn better when they are provided with opportunities to design, create, and build projects. And nothing is more powerful than having a mental design and creating a tangible object. So for me, I can use the 3D design and printing method in the creation of adaptive equipment for healthcare fabrication curricula. So in our curriculum in healthcare, we sometimes have a design and fabrication class. So this is also very good to use in a class like that. And it kind of ties into various theories too. Why are we paying a lot of money for medical equipment when we can create them ourselves? So that is something a little bit of a political statement. So I'm just connecting it to another theory, another frame of reference. So examples of applications of the 3D design, like applications are the 3D10 and Scopteo. And this shows definitely in the SAMR model are redefinition. So you are inventing something, you're creating something. You're creating something so that somebody will be more functional. So the spoon, sometimes like people who don't have good fine motor coordination, they need a grasp to hold the spoon so they can use the spoon. So that's just one example. You can also probably build orthoses, splints for the hands, and many other things. Next one is the Lumo Lift Posture Sensor, which I'm wearing right now, right here, my sweater. So Science and Virturi and Soto stated that poor posture may cause physical problems such as back pain, spinal dysfunction, joint degeneration, and loss of balance. How does that connect to learning? Well, that's motor learning. Lumo Bodytech introduced Lumo Lift, a biomechanical sensor that you can wear on clothing, so that if you slouch, it will buzz and remind you to have a more upright posture. And it also has a corresponding application in your smartphone that tracks the percentage during the day that you have good posture. So you actually have feedback to go along with that. So it will provide tactile cues for the users to readjust trunk posture, vibration. And this is, I think this best describes A, augmentation. I mean, it is replacing a verbal cue, like straighten up your trunk, by using vibration. But it also has functional gains and functional purposes. So I think A best describes the Lumo Lift posture sensor. Next, the Muse headband for relaxation. In the Muse website, it says that this device uses the brain waves, detects the brain waves if they are in a relaxed mode or active mode. So you can use this information for relaxation and self-regulation. So students can relearn self-regulation and voluntary deep breathing through this Muse headband, which I have right here. You wear it over your forehead. So how does that relate to learning? Well, if I worked in, I used to work in a school setting, and having students in a more relaxed state, I have the experience that they will actually attend more to tasks if their energy is not that high. It's at the functional level. So the functional gains of using this, there might be increased attention to school tasks after using it. So again, this is A. Instead of saying pay attention to work, you are using this device, which connects again to an application. Also, you will hear sounds there. If you are relaxed, you will hear sounds that say, like birds chirping, that will give you feedback that you are more relaxed. The smartphone used as metronomes. So this is also used in relearning of motor movement, particularly with people with Parkinson's disease. So what is Parkinson's disease? It is a progressive neural disorder that damages the central nervous system, that part of the central nervous system that produces dopamine. So the symptoms of Parkinson's is tremors, lack of movement, slowness of movement, and then bradykinesia, which is slowness of movement, stiffness of arms and legs. So there has been studies before that says like the use of computer-based metronomes increases the performance of repetitive movements. So repetitive movements, what are those? An example is walking. That's a repetitive automatic movement for some people. So when you have a metronome, instead of somebody saying, start walking, lift your leg up, then the person with Parkinson's will just hear the metronome, the auditory cues, and they will try to initiate movement of the leg. So again, this is A, because instead of saying move your leg, you are using auditory cues and visual cues using the metronome. So that's augmentation. And lastly, the Omni VR, or Omni Virtual Rehabilitation, developed by Accelerated Care Plus. So they developed a device that uses 3D cameras and software to track a user's movement. So people can actually do exercises with that, and also do cognitive exercises or activities using this virtual reality device. So it has applications in rehabilitation sciences and neuromuscular relearning. And I think this is more of an M, or modification, because you can actually do a whole therapy session using this device. And this also does a little bit of evaluation in the program. So it does a lot of things, so I would put it in the M. And also, the backing for this, the use of VR, is that according to some researchers, people with strokes using the VR improved functional movement outcomes. So there is actually a study, or a couple of studies actually, support the use of virtual reality in rehab. And now, talk about the advantages and disadvantages of the SAMR model. Advantages, it's pretty easy to understand, it's straightforward, and it actually corresponds to the Bloom's taxonomy, so it's pretty straightforward. It can be easily used to classify technological experiences, which we all have done tonight. It's also helpful in transitions in implementation of technology, and helpful in analyzing the need for technology in a given situation. The disadvantages are it's pretty much like a linear model and does not really explain too much in the systemic complexities of learning. It does not address the context of learning. Some people view it as a rigid structure. It emphasizes product over process. And it's more, we're like the whole night we were talking about technologies and not really the process, not much of the process. So it's pretty much technology based rather than people-centered. So with that, I hope all of you learned from all our diverse experiences with technology, and have a good evening, and feel free to ask any questions.
Yes, thank you all for paying attention.
Well, yes, thank you guys for a wonderful presentation. Yeah, great job. Actually, great job all around. It's so much information to process. When I first kind of thought of a group presentation like this, I just didn't think I'd be so overwhelmed with information. So thank you, everyone, for all the work you've done. If you could submit, and then maybe we could share the presentations on the Blackboard course site, because it's going to take a lot to mull over. But thank you all. I have a lot of ideas. I've jotted notes down for all your work, and I'll share them this week. Tomorrow we have 2 more presentations, so feel free to come in and visit those if you presented today. Thank you very much. I'm going to sign off now. We are a little over time, but I think it was well worth it. So tomorrow morning we'll wrap it up on the discussion board. Oh, any questions for these guys? We'll definitely have some time, some space on the discussion board for follow-ups. But any questions right now?
Just quick, Dr. Chamber, you want us to put the link onto the assessment folder? Is that what you want?
Yeah, I think the assessment folder has a place to download. You did a Google.
Yeah, just put it there.
Yeah, if you just make the URL public and put that in there, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, everybody, have a great night. I think some of you, I think we're getting texts you're having a delayed opening tomorrow. So I'll see you all online tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for a wonderful night. I really appreciate all your work.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.